So I want to welcome you to this month's presentation. And we have the president, right, of the Bainbridge Island Photo Club today. So thank you very much, Norm James, for sharing your photographs with us, not only online at the biseniorcenter.org website, but also right here in the lobby again, which is great. So welcome. And we look forward to letting you tell us a little bit about the exhibit that you put together for this month.
For today's virtual meeting, which is different than the print ones, what I have is I have a series of 3 series. First one are the birds, and then the next one is on a trip to the Alabama Hills in California that I took in February. And then the last series is on a trip that I took to Banff and Jasper, October of 2019. So that's what we're going to show, and they're all recent photos. So it'll be fun, I think. The first one's going to be that blue jay right there. So this is what I use for a camera. I have a Nikon D750, which is a full frame camera. So I'm talking to, I think most of you are photographers, so I don't think anything is going to be new here. And I use all either Tamron or Nikon lenses. They're all zoom lenses. I don't have any fixed lenses at all. And all of these, the bird photos were taken from my porch over just this past winter. And I'm not a bird photographer at all. And so for me to take birds and learn about taking birds, it was a process. These are things that I learned. You really have to have a fast shutter speed. And the way I did that is I just boosted the ISO up quite a bit. I think this particular photo was at ISO 400. And I think everything else was pushing 1,000, 2,000 ISO. So I really pushed it a lot just to get a fast shutter speed. And I also had a fairly shallow depth of field. I think this is like a 5.31 f-stop, 5.62, something like that. So a fairly shallow f-stop, so I could get that shallow depth of field in it. All of these are handheld, and I used the 100 to 400 lens. And I think it may have even be DX cropped just to get even closer. And like I said, they're all taken from my deck over this past winter. So this is the very first photo that I took. The blue jay was the first in the series, and we can go on from there. Everybody just jump in when you want to jump in, and we can talk about each individual photo or not. So one of the things that I learned about birds is that we've got a couple of bird feeders, and some birds are flightier than others. Some birds will let you get up pretty close to them without taking off. I found that the larger the bird, the flightier they are. Very difficult to get for me to get this flicker, and that's what this is. This is a great northern flicker. For us, man, if you even walk out the door, these flickers would be gone. So I had to sit up outside on the porch and just sit and wait for them to show up and wait for them to show up. And finally I got this one to show up on a branch that I liked. I hated to take any photos on sitting at the bird feeder. I didn't want the birds sitting at a bird feeder taken for me to take photos of. I wanted them all to be natural. So then I had to wait for them to land on a branch. There's a lot of birds that fly from off and come straight to the feeder without landing on anything else. So it's a challenge for me to get birds that are going to land on a branch and take photos of. So this is a Downy Woodpecker. We have several of this type of woodpecker. There's a Downy, which is this. There's another one, I think it's called a hairy woodpecker. Looks a lot like this one, but just bigger. And so they're kind of hard to find that aren't sitting on bird feeder as well. So go on to the next one. And so again, this is in the winter time, and some of these photos are taken in the rain, and you can see how uncomfortable they are while they're sitting out there. This one is all hunkered down and just trying to keep dry.
The birds do that. Why don't they go somewhere where they're covered up?
Because they're birds. It's winter time. There's not a lot of place to go to, where they're going to be, and they're coming to the feeder, and the feeder's sitting out there, just sitting out there waiting to, feed the birds. So that's where they're coming to. So.
How far away is the feeder from this bird right now?
Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet. So this particular one is, this is some kind of plant that's directly underneath the feeder, and so it's just sitting down there, and I just grab these photos as I can. So what I do is I just put it on full burst mode, and just snap away, then I go through a series of photos till I find one that I like, then just pick out the best one that I like. So. Go ahead, read next one.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you know what type of bird this is?
Well, it's some kind of a sparrow, or whether it's a house sparrow or something. It's a sparrow. One of the, man, I don't know. We probably have a half dozen different types of sparrows, that are around here. Crowned sparrows, crown-headed sparrows, house sparrows, song sparrows. We have all kinds of sparrows. I think that this particular one was just a regular house sparrow. This one is a little chickadee, obviously. A lot better weather for this guy, and it's just sitting on a rose bush, that we happen to have out front, and grab the picture of them. All of these birds that we're going to be showing are just typical, backyard birds that are in the backyard, that are through the winter time. So all of the other ones have already migrated out. So yeah, these are the typical wintertime birds that we have. This is a towhee. That's the same thing. It hangs around all year long. And same thing, you can tell it's raining out there, and he's not exactly comfortable. The fun thing about taking photos of these kind of birds is that you can actually blow them up and look at them really close. I'd never really noticed this guy's got some real eyebrows on him. If you look close, you can see his eyebrows sticking up, and again, he's just not real comfortable out in the rain. But that's where you got to go to eat. So I think this is one of my favorite photos that I took of the birds. I think we only had one day of snow just this past winter, and I went out, took a picture. This is a starling that we always have around the yard, and he comes and he eats on our feeders. And I don't know if the rest of you have starlings, but starlings usually run in packs, and we'll get 3 or 4 starlings up there, and they'll just strip the feeder of food, and so we're not real happy with starlings. But I like this guy just sitting here in the snow, and so I got a chance to take a picture of it. This is I really like this photo just because of it's different. So anyway, that's it for birds. Anybody got any questions on birds?
Dad had a question.
Are starlings something like crows? Are they predators?
Predators, and they are, what do you mean by predators? They always come, and they'll come in groups. They'll show up with 1 starling, 2 starlings, and they really like to talk to each other, because then pretty soon, they'll know that the feeders are out. We don't have any food in the feeders right now because we want the starlings to go away. And so when we figured out that the starlings are going to be gone, then we'll put the food back in the feeders again. But they really are, they're just gluttons, and they'll come around until all the food's gone, and they chase all the other birds away as well. So we just hate to see the starlings come around, but it was a nice picture. They look, if anybody has red-winged blackbirds out, a female or a young juvenile red-winged blackbird looks very similar to this particular bird right here. it has a lot of the spotting, a lot of the feathering. With the red-winged blackbird, they have a dark-colored bill, as opposed to this one has that yellow-orange bill. Red-winged blackbirds have a dark bill and a longer tail, and so that's a lot of the times that's how we can tell the difference between a starling and a either juvenile or a female red-winged blackbird. Is just take a look at the beak and whether or not the tail is long, you know, that the red-winged blackbirds have. And red-winged blackbirds is another one difficult to photograph because, man, you even any kind of movement and they'll be gone. So my hat's off to all of the bird photographers out there, because man, it's tough to get a good photo of birds out there, even the typical backyard birds that we have. Yeah, so.
Norm, this is Diane. I think your birds are really nice. I do particularly like this one. One thing you might try, you could bring, I don't see a real problem with noise in your images, but you can put up a light stand that's closer to your feeder.
Yeah.
You're using it on a remote basis, and then you can be in the background. And so it provides some extra light. And I've tried that a couple times, and I find that the birds kind of get used to it. So,
yeah.
Not in the rain, you probably don't want to do that, but just
Yeah.
something you might try sometime.
Yeah, yeah. Well, remember we put on a thing about noise, and I can't even remember the term about what the ISO noise with particular cameras. And so with our particular camera, I didn't have to worry about the noise. So I could just bump up that ISO, 2000, 3000, not even have to worry about the noise at all. And I can't even remember that term, but our cameras, our Nikon cameras, we don't have to worry about that. So, and I've tried for our feeder, I tried disguising our feeder because I have our feeders on rebar that I've bent over and that kind of stuff. And I tried disguising that by putting branches on it, stuff like that. So that way they'd land on that as opposed to the rebar. Man, they never landed on it, ever. They just avoided it. So I said, that's good. I'll just wait for them to land on something natural. So,
Norm, this is Paul.
Paul.
One of the things I've thought while watching birds feed is that most of them seem to be really nervous. They're trying to avoid being attacked while they're eating, I think, because they'll take a peck or two and then fly away to a branch and look over the scene, or at very least they'll twist their head around and look to see who's near, and then another peck.
Yeah,
it seems like a fairly scary, tense experience for them.
Well, yeah, I agree. For us, back when we used to have squirrel problems, and the squirrels would jump from trees, land on our feeders, and eat up all the stuff. And I finally had to move the feeders out away from any trees, because birds are certainly a lot more comfortable if they have some kind of cover, so that way the birds aren't attacked from above and all that kind of stuff. And so for us, we have some kind of I'll call it a shed roof over the top of the feeder itself. So that way, I think the birds are a little more comfortable. If there's something over them, they don't have to worry about being attacked from above as much. So they're a little more comfortable. But again, the smaller the bird, the sparrows, the chickadees, you can almost walk out there and fill up the feeder. It doesn't bother them at all. It's these larger birds, the flickers and the red-headed woodpeckers, man, any kind of movement, and they'll be gone. The smaller the bird, they don't care for some reason. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, photo. Yeah. One of the things I might ask you now, because you were touching on it a little bit, was that you said in a little introduction to this gallery online that the Photo Club has offered you the opportunity to really get into a hobby that you hadn't known a lot about before. Can you talk a little bit about how the club works?
Yeah, I joined the Photo Club, oh heavens, 2014, I think, 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And I was just getting into photography, and I'll be quite honest with you, I was not very good at all. I mean, I thought I was pretty good, but in all reality, I wasn't very good. The Photo Club has spectacular photographers, and the one good thing about photographers is that they're always willing to share their knowledge with other people. And for me to join the photo club, it was like turning on a light bulb. You know, he had so many, you know, I'll tell you, Pat, Don, Rob, Dave, I mean, those guys always willing, and they've been on the photo club probably the longest of everybody that I know of, always willing to share their information and their knowledge. And they have so much information, so much knowledge, you know, that they just help you learn. And there is so much to learn in photography. You could keep on going and learning and learning and learning. Surprisingly enough, the COVID is what made me a far better photographer than the previous 6 years, because I was forced to sit down and watch videos and learn about Photoshop. And I mean, I was just forced to do it. And, you know, I hate to say this, but without COVID, I'd just be just a mediocre photographer. And I still consider myself not the best photographer in the whole wide world, but certainly getting better, you know, that, and it's because of the photo club and certainly because of COVID. So anyway, this is a trip that I took just this past February from here down to Alabama Hills in California. And if you don't know where Alabama Hills is probably just north of Death Valley in California. So we're talking about eastern Sierras and quite a ways down, because you're a lot further down. Well, you're probably parallel with Las Vegas, how far down south you are. But this particular photograph, this is actually in Oregon, and these are called the columns of Rome. And I, you know, before me ever going there, I thought it had to do with like Rome, Italy. But now that I think about it, it has nothing to do with Rome, Italy at all. This is near a town, Rome, Oregon. And Rome, Oregon is about as far southeast Oregon as you can possibly go. It's just a small town. There's absolutely nothing there except for these columns. And these are just, I don't know, 10 miles outside of town, something or other like that. And I just really enjoyed getting down here and getting a photograph of this. So as the trip goes on, as I go further south, we'll have less and less snow. This is probably night was like in the upper 20s, and I camp out. You know, I camp out every night. And you know, like I said, this is in the upper 20s. Certainly not here during the daytime, but at nighttime, this is in the upper 20s. So it's obviously still cold. So want to go to the next one? So this is I've managed to make it all the way down to, this is the Alabama Hills in Southern California. And the only reason that I'm taking this particular photograph, because it's not a very good photograph, is because that's Mount Whitney that's back there straight through the background. And Mount Whitney is the highest mountain in the lower 48. And I'd always thought that Mount Whitney was an extremely tall mountain, but it's only like about 100 feet taller than Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is certainly is one of the tallest peaks we have, you know, in continental United States. And Mount Rainier, if you're from the Northwest, you've never seen Mount Whitney, but you've always heard about Mount Whitney, you know, you go, so, and again, this is the middle of February. How come that thing's not covered with snow? And apparently it's not covered in snow all year round. I mean, not at all. And a part of that has to do with, so the elevation that we're at right here is somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 feet. You know, so has quite a bit of elevation, you know, just to start with. So anyway, the one day of clouds that we had, if you're a photographer, you hate blue sky, the one day of clouds that I had was here. Alabama Hills, it's just this exactly what you're looking at. It looks like somebody walked along and emptied their pockets with giant rocks, and that's all they are, just giant rocks that somebody just piled up down here. They're all rounded. There looks like they've gone through a washing machine. They're all rounded. There's nothing sharp, you know, so I don't know where they came from. Don't know how they got there. You know, it's just this pile of big giant rocks. as an idea. So far left side is a camper that's over there, right in the middle of the photograph is a camper. So you get an idea of how big these things are. So it's just an interesting place to be. It's just
I
very,
love this. I love this photograph because it has all these different textures in it.
yeah, yeah. You know, and so the one thing about Mount Whitney. So if you climb Mount Rainier, it is a technical climb where you have to rope up, you have to have crampons and all that kind of stuff. It's a technical climb to climb Mount Rainier. Mount Whitney is not. You could go up there in your tennis shoes if you wanted to, you know, during the summertime and stuff. I mean, it's not even that difficult. I mean, people do it all the time. They get a lot of people summiting Mount Whitney. And so the differences between the highest mountain in the lower 48 compared to Mount Rainier, I just found staggering. You know, in the next photo that you're going to see, in the background is a road that you drive up to fairly high up there. So this particular photo, I travel with one of my dogs. This is my dog Pip. We have to have a picture of my dog Pip on all of my travels. So that really is the purpose of this particular photo. But all the way back on the mountain, you can see like a Z that's going up that mountain. That's the road that drives up into the jump off point to climb Mount Whitney. So it's obvious it's a ways back there, but you know, the mountain ranges between this and the mountains that we're used to is just staggering. I mean, the Snoqualmie Pass, what is that, like 3,200 feet, something like that, you know? And here, this is 3,500, 4,000 feet where I'm standing, you know? So it's just the difference between, you know, the elevation between that far south and where we're at is just amazing. So, this is a photo that I took, and again, if you're a photographer, an outdoor photographer, if you have no clouds, you know, you have to opt to something else. So I opted to not shoot anything during the daytime. Now it became all nighttime photographs, and that's what this is. This is at a camp spot that I was at, and a lot of people are asking. So back in the background is a campsite, and that's a camp trailer that's back there. And you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, that looks like a pretty big fire. Well, it probably really wasn't. But if you hold your shutter open for, I think this is probably like 20 seconds, you're going to get a lot more light in. And so therefore, I think that's what makes that look like they have a huge big fire. But this just, again, it just shows you all these rocks that are just piled up there, and it is absolutely breathtaking, you know. And it's not very big, you know, 5 miles by 5 miles, and then all of a sudden you're away from all the rocks. It's just an astounding place. And this is the same thing. One of the things that I forgot to say, I think all of these photos were taken with either a 35 to 150 zoom lens, and all of the nighttime photos were taken on a 24-70 2.8 lens. Alabama Hills is known for, they have, I think it's about 400 of these arches that are down there, and I think 300 of them are named, but there's like about 400 of them down in this very small area. This particular arch, I could stand up in there. It's probably 9 feet high, something like that. So it's you know, just walk around, find the arches, take photographs of the arches, and it's the same thing. I think this is the last night I was there, and this is probably like about 9 o'clock at night. I don't even think it was 10 o'clock at night. It was like about 3/4 full moon. So it was very, very light out. And you know, I could walk around without a headlamp on. It was so light. So jump to the next one. This probably is one of my favorite all-time photos. I know probably most of you know, beginning of World War II, you know, they interned all of the Japanese on the West Coast. And this is one of the more famous camps. This is Manzanar, which is just north of Alabama Hills. And this would be looking at the main entrance to Manzanar. And this is the same thing. This is like 10 o'clock at night, something like that. And I just find this photograph just astounding for the history of it, what went on during that time frame. You know, if anybody ever gets a chance, they need to go down and take a look at this camp, because it is just amazing. You know, they brought in, they interned, you know, U.S. citizens, you know, born here in the U.S. and they just locked them up. Anyway, so we have a camp here, and the Japanese, you know, they were there for 3.5 years, something like that. So you know, you're certainly going to have deaths. And I can't remember how many people died while they were interned here, 50 plus, and they refused to be buried in the camp. And so off to the right, back in the back, just outside the camp, they had a cemetery, and I can't remember, like 17 people were buried back there. And the rest of the people died. They were all cremated. And so at the end of the war, they took their ashes back home again, and to be buried back at home. And half the bodies that were buried in the cemetery, they exhumed and brought them back home as well. I think there's only 7 or 8 people that remain buried back there. But for me personally, you know, it's just the history of this particular location. I just really like the photograph itself. So
And of course, a lot. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to just add one thing, because I've made this trip many times. What you don't realize, you got a little bit of information from Norm, who was there in February, where the temperatures are really, really cold. In the summer, it's 95 to 100 there regularly. So to be transplanted from the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, to this, it was punishment enough. But it's very oppressive conditions, weather conditions.
yeah, and right across. So I mean, it's a main highway, you know, that this is right up next to, and right across from that is an airport, a no longer used airport, and it had to have been built during World War II, because there's no other reason to have an airport out there. There's nothing there except a lot of concrete runways out there, and that's where I ended up spending the night, was out there on this runway. And now it's all, you know, concrete's still there. It's not going anywhere. But I woke up the next morning and there's cows wandering around behind me and stuff. So that's an interesting place. Just absolutely, if you like this kind of look, it is gorgeous, and it is filled with history, boy. There's so much to do down through here. A lot of fun.
I was just going to mention that Manzanar was the first location for the people who came from Bainbridge Island, which was the first place where people were collected, Japanese Americans, by the military police to intern them during the war.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, just beautiful. Well, you know, and I first came driving up here. Now, obviously, I'd never been here before. I came driving up here, and you see this guard shack that's over on the left-hand side. And there are these things that look like tree stumps that are there, but they're not really tree stumps, but they're made out of concrete or something or other like that. And so in viewing the history of here, there was a Japanese artist, and he made these concrete things that look like tree stumps and that kind of stuff. They have an obelisk where the cemetery is in the back, and he created that. It's a tall, probably 10-foot white obelisk, you know, that's there for the cemetery itself. And it is just absolutely beautiful. And what Jane was talking about, these guys lived in tar paper shacks, you know, in 100-degree weather or 10-degree weather, you know, that kind of stuff. And it just had to be horrendous for these people at that time. So yeah, I just personally think it's just a dark time for our history. So anyway, enough of that. So we have to have, for me, most people that are watching this know that I really like panoramas. So this is the one and only panorama from this particular trip that I'm going to show. This is Malign Lake in Mono Lake, I couldn't tell you why, but they have these, oh, what in the world are these? Toofs or tooflas?
Tufa.
Tufas,
Tufa.
Tufas.
They're tufa mounds.
Yeah,
tufa.
Towers.
And so this is not a good location for it. The best location back way around on the backside of this lake, but this is actually a state park where I'm at right here. So I just thought I'd take a panorama with a tufa in it. So it's snow on the ground, but it was nice and warm though. Snow is melting fast, and this is in February. This lake apparently used to be a lot deeper, but they drained a lot of it for irrigation or something. So anyway, my one and only panorama from that I'm going to show from this particular trip.
Okay, and Glenn, who apparently is a bit of a geologist, may be able to tell us more, but I think that it's from Thermal Springs, right? These tufas?
Yeah, it's calcium carbonate. It's basically limestone deposited because of the upwelling in Mono Lake, which Norm's right, it's been drained. A lot of it went to LA as part of the LA Department of Water and Power's pipeline and canal system that went from Mono Lake down to LA.
I'm assuming at one point these tufas were underwater or close to being underwater.
Yeah, they were, Norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't have anything to say about this other than I'm driving down the highway. I happen to see this alongside the road, and it looked like a very nice photo. And Rob Wagner is always asking, hey, how come you took this photo? And I'm going, because it was pretty. That's why. So that's the reason I took this photo. Thank goodness for Photoshop, because there used to be a lot of barbed wire fencing that ran through this photograph in the foreground that thank goodness got taken out. But same thing, I'm just driving down the road and it's alongside the highway. So I thought I'd stop and take a photograph of it. So I just liked it. Now we get into Banff and Jasper. And again, if you've never been here before and you like this stuff, this is something that you need to go to. I mean, you drive around the corners and your jaw hangs open from all of the sights. They are just absolutely spectacular. And on this particular trip, we went in October of 2019, and virtually everything I took was all panoramas. So everything that I have, I'm going to show here is all panoramas. So I think this is just outside of Banff National Park. If you haven't gone here before, I think there are 5 national parks and I couldn't name them all, but I think there's 5 national parks. They're all butted up right up next to each other. The main ones obviously are Banff and Jasper. There's Yoho and 2 others that I don't know, but it is they have a main highway that drives right between Banff, which is to the south, and Jasper to the north. Stays open year round. It's like I-90. It has to stay open year round because it's a major highway, north-south highway in that part of the country and stuff. And you just drive along it. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is Malign Lake. I think that's how you pronounce it. Maligne, which is in Banff National Park. I'm sorry. I think we skipped one. Go back one photo. No, okay, go to the next one. Okay, well, anyway, never mind. This is not, okay, there we are. This is Malign Lake, Maligne. This is in Banff National Park. And this is driving up the highway to, oh, crikey, what in the world's the other lake? Okay, you guys that have been there before, what's the main lake that's up here? What we're going to come to?
Lake Louise, my dad is saying.
Lake Louise, okay, yeah. All right. So this is on the highway up to Lake Louise, and it's, I don't know, a half-hour drive off the main highway up to Lake Louise. And again, this is one of the main lakes, main tourist stops that's in Banff National Park, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. we were up there towards, I want to say October 25th, 26th, 27th. So we're getting fairly late in the year. And I wanted to get up there before the snow because we were towing a trailer. But just absolutely gorgeous. This is something you can go to year round. So this is Lake Louise right here. And obviously it's a panorama, and you're looking north, and straight back in the back it is there's a tea house back in there. There's a hike. You skirt around the lake and up towards, then you climb up. Unfortunately, I can't point, but right in the middle of the photograph, straight up, the biggest white glacier, plain of 6 glaciers, is a hike up there, and probably a little over 7+ miles round trip, and half of it just skirting the lake. And there's a tea house up fairly close to that. No electricity up there. They have to pack up everything up there. You know, their propane, all of their supplies, everything has to be all packed up there. But just absolutely gorgeous. All of these were taken on exactly the same trip. So if you want to jump over to the next one. Okay, go to. This is there's the main river, and I know I'm going to butcher the name of this, Athabasca River. So these are the Athabasca Falls. And further, this is getting closer and closer to Jasper. So we're actually in Jasper National Park for this particular photograph. When you're driving up the highway, you're going to drive past the Athabasca Glacier, and you can stand on the highway. You can actually walk all the way up to the glacier. But they also have these big giant buses that'll drive you up onto the glacier itself, you know, with those big giant monster tires and stuff. And if you stand on the highway and you look at the glacier, you look at the little tiny buses driving around out there on the glacier. It is absolutely spectacular. But anyway, these are Athabasca Falls, and you get close to these falls. Go back one photograph. One of the things that you're going to see is back in the background, you're going to see a lot of dead pines. There's something going through there and it's killing, whether it's a pine bark beetle or whatever it is, but all the pines are dying. And that's the reason that everything in the background is all brown. And I'd be willing to bet if you went up there now, you'd see a lot of this forest brown. And it's just dying. As I had been up there the year before, almost exactly a year before, and most of this forest, you could see the forest starting to die. But in the background, all the forest is turning brown because all the pines are dying off, and it's just horrible. But I just kind of look at it, you know, like it's just some other trees are going to be growing in its place, and eventually they'll call nature. You know, we enjoy it because we're mankind, but at some point, you know, nature's just going to flat out take over and, you know, take it over. This is originally, I was thinking this was a lake, but the closer I look at it, I don't think it's a lake per se. I think it's more of a large, huge pond. This is north of Jasper, the town of Jasper. And I can't remember the name of this mountain, but it's north of Jasper. And it's just, like I said, everything is in Panorama, and it is absolutely gorgeous up there. So jump to the next one. And all of these panoramas are all handheld, and they're all taken with my 2470 lens. So all handheld, all with 2470 lens. This is the last photograph, and I just really like this. This is just some pond, you know, this happens to be out there. I just like the reflections of it and that sort of thing. And I had a really tough time. The color of the grass stuff out in the foreground was tough. It was really tough. It really came out red for some reason. But anyway, that's it. If you get a chance, if you've never gone, go, because it is absolutely gorgeous. I enjoyed it so much. The last time I was up there, about a year-long pass, because I planned on going several more times in that following year, but then COVID came along and I couldn't go back. It is gorgeous. So That's it.
Very nice, Norm.
Oh,
I've
thank
seen a
you.
lot of those before, but it's nice to
Yeah,
see them again.
Well done, Norm.
Great that you do all that traveling.
beautiful.